There's this tiny organism, only female, with no males. For an incredible 80 million years, it has reproduced daughters that are virtually identical to itself, essentially clones of the mother. Think about that. For 80 million years, it's been mostly just cloning itself. It's truly amazing. On July 21st, 2013, the prestigious journal Nature published a paper on this creature. This small freshwater organism, the Bdelloid rotifer, instantly became a huge focus in biology. The Bdelloid rotifer is so incredible because it completely challenges our assumptions about reproduction. The question of reproduction was first addressed by Charles Darwin about 150 years ago. Darwin argued that sexual reproduction always outcompetes asexual reproduction in evolution. Sexual reproduction shuffles genetic material from both parents, i.e., creating mutations that help animals and plants adapt to environmental changes and build resistance to viruses. For over a century, Darwin's theory was accepted as solid, but the Bdelloid rotifer is a classic example of asexual reproduction, and studying it has deeply puzzled geneticists. Let's go back to the beginning. Bdelloid rotifers were actually first discovered 300 years ago. In 1702, the Dutch scientist Antony van Leeuwenhoek, known as the father of microscopy, examined water from a local ditch. He found these tiny, translucent creatures, only 0.1 to 1 millimeter in size. Leeuwenhoek suspected there were no males, but given the limitations of the time, he couldn't be sure. This went on until 1986. Even the renowned British biologist John Maynard Smith couldn't find a single male rotifer. He was so frustrated, he famously called the Bdelloid rotifer an evolutionary scandal. Why? Because Smith just couldn't reconcile it. This organism reproduces by parthenogenesis, which is when a female copies her own DNA to reproduce without a male. While parthenogenesis happens in nature, in creatures like sea urchins, snakes, and bees, those species usually exist as both sexes. The offspring from normal sexual reproduction are generally healthier, more adaptable, and longer lived, which fits perfectly with Darwin's model. Relying solely on asexual reproduction is extremely risky. Without genetic mixing, flaws are passed down unchanged through generations. If a single gene were targeted by a virus, the whole species could be wiped out. Yet the Bdelloid rotifer breaks all the rules. If it truly has been cloning itself for 80 million years, it creates a major loophole in Darwin's idea that sex is the superior reproductive method. This proves our knowledge is still very limited, and we have a lot more to learn about reproduction. The 2013 Nature article finally shed some light on this mystery. Belgian geneticist Karine van Donink was one of the lead researchers. The Bdelloid rotifer has an extraordinary survival trick. If water is scarce, it can dehydrate and enter a zombie-like state. This is exactly like the tardigrade, or water bear, Earth's most resilient organism. When dry and dehydrated, the Bdelloid rotifer, like the water bear, can survive extreme heat, high pressure, and long periods of time. The longest recorded survival in this state is 9 years. You can see the process of dehydration, drying, and eventual reanimation. Once fully dehydrated, the rotifer becomes a dust-like cyst that can be carried by the wind. When that cyst finds a suitable wet environment, like a pond, the rotifer rehydrates. After only about 2 to 3 hours, it's fully revived. The secret to their 80 million years of survival is right here. Karine's team discovered that when water is removed, the rotifer's DNA becomes fragile, leading to catastrophic double-strand breaks. The DNA is essentially shattered. Most organisms can't recover from that, but during rehydration, the rotifer can repair the fragmented DNA. Just how good is their DNA repair? Karine van Donink's team tested it using proton radiation. Proton therapy is used to treat cancer by shattering tumor DNA. A typical dose is only 1 to 7 gray. Karine blasted the rotifer DNA with 800 gray, which caused hundreds of double-strand breaks. Astonishingly, over 99% of the rotifer survived. It's like something out of a Marvel movie. As the rotifer repairs and rebuilds its DNA, it swallows up gene fragments from organic matter in the water and merges those foreign genes into its own. Basically, the Bdelloid rotifer steals genes from others. While scientists aren't exactly sure how the rotifer gets the foreign DNA, they do know that its body contains over 500 different species of DNA, making up more than 10% of its total genes. By repairing and recombining its DNA, the rotifer has found an amazing way to beat the genetic stability problem, overcoming the drawbacks of asexual reproduction and thriving in nature. Today, we found over 400 species of Bdelloid rotifers. They usually live in moist places like moss, puddles, and ponds. Common rotifers have 4 toes on their feet and what look like antennae on their heads, which scientists think are sensory organs. The red spot in their stomach is their food, Haematococcus pluvialis. This algae is famous for producing natural astaxanthin, which happens to be the most potent natural antioxidant. Eating this algae is likely a key reason for the rotifer's toughness. Here's an interesting thought. Maybe the more than 400 species and countless numbers of rotifers we see today all evolved from just one rotifer that randomly mutated 80 million years ago. In that sense, it was one individual 80 million years ago that continually reproduced and evolved, floating on the wind to every corner of the planet. That is truly remarkable. The famous American geneticist Matthew Meselson once said the rotifer's existence should make biologists question life itself. He felt people need to rethink the role of sexual reproduction in evolution. We won't go too deep into that broad topic, but the way the rotifer swallows and recombines DNA is something scientists definitely need to study closely. Imagine if humans could gain the rotifer's resistance to radiation and drought, or the water bear's tolerance for extreme heat and cold. That could open up huge possibilities for space exploration and building new homes in the universe. Studying the bdelloid rotifer reminds us, once again, to respect nature. Human advances are tiny compared to the vastness of the natural world. It's like a kid picking up one seashell on a huge beach, excited about the little find, but completely unaware of all the treasures the ocean still hides.